Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In the previous video, we discussed some basics of normalization. We talked about what normalization is, why exactly is normalization important. We also talked about anomalies as well as dependencies and determinants. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to convert to the first normal form. And we're going to use this table right here to better demonstrate this. But before I get into converting to the first normal form, there is one important thing to note about converting to the first normal form, and that is that you need to identify a determinant, which when you use it, and your determinant is going to be your primary key, which when you use it, it should be able to return one complete record from the table. So for example, you need to identify one determinant. It could either be your student ID, student name, but you need to be very careful when you determine this. When you determine it, it should be able to return a complete record, everything from the student ID all the way to the student mark, based on whatever table you have. Yeah, and that's about it. So if we look at this table here, can we use the student ID to return everything else from the student name all the way to the student mark? Probably not. The best we can do is to return the student name and the student address, everything related to the student. The student name is not even up for a debate because you could have multiple students with similar names. For example, there might be another student in the class whose name is Nick, but with a different surname. So obviously you can't use the student name to return one complete record. The student address as well is not even up for discussion because you can see all the students here stay in the same neighborhood. So we cannot use that. The supervisor ID, you could get some, but not a complete record. You probably will be able to return data related to the supervisor as well as the course that they supervise. So you might be able to return your supervisor name, your course code, as well as the course name. And then that's about it. With your course code, you might be able to return your course name, and that's about it. So in a scenario like this, you might need to identify um, two determinants that will help you return a complete record. So for example, if you use a student ID, you'll be able to return a student name and a student address. But a student is registered to a specific course, and the specific course belongs to a certain supervisor. So we know that maybe if we combine student ID and supervisor ID, that might be able to help us return everything because we know that a student is registered to a specific course and a specific course is a specific supervisor and the student has gotten a specific mark for that course. So that is going to be your primary key, for which you call a composite primary key. And this is where you write it out here. You know that with using your student ID and your supervisor ID, you'll be able to return your student name, student address, supervisor name, course code, course name, as well as the student mark. So this is what we call converting to the first normal form. And in some instances, you might be required to draw a dependency diagram, which I've already prepped here. So it's not complete because I wanted to show you the entire process. So these are the tables that we have on top here. So we know that your student ID and your supervisor ID will help you return a complete record. So you want to identify those as your primary keys. You might label them as a primary key here at the bottom right, as well as here, or you might shade them. I prefer shading, so I'm just going to shade the student ID and my supervisor ID with a different color. Then I know that using these two, I'm going to be able to return everything else, which is going to be represented by everything from here all the way to the student mark. And I'm going to label this as proper functional dependency. It is important to note that proper functional dependencies are demonstrated at the top or are shown above because they show a desired state. And then the dependencies below it are in an undesirable state, which need to be resolved as we move further down our normalization hierarchy. And we know that here, this is a partial dependency because you can use this record here to return some parts of your table, but not everything. So I'm going to label it partial dependency. Same for this one, we know that we can use the supervisor ID to return their name as well as the course that they supervise. So that becomes our partial dependency as well. And then this one is a transitive dependency because we cannot necessarily use any of our primary keys that we identified to return the attributes, but we can use the course code to return the course name. So this becomes our transitive dependency. And there it is. So here we've shown how to convert to the first normal form, which you can write it out like this, or you can draw your dependency diagram. And that's what we call converting to the first normal form. Before I end this video, there's one of the questions that people normally ask in a table like this. This is a very special case, but some people may ask, why can't we use the student ID as well as the course code? Because it looks like we can use that to return every record in this table, because with the student ID, we can get a student name, student address, and then with the course code, we can get the course name as well as the supervisor that supervises that course as well as the name, and it's a course that a student is registered for and the mark that they got for that course. Yes, you can use that in this scenario. So you could have chosen to represent this using your student ID as well as your course code, but obviously you'd have to switch things around here to make sure that your dependency diagram fits exactly the composite primary keys that you've chosen. So that is an option. You can do that, but it doesn't always work. You need to be very, very sure of the primary keys that you choose. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comment below and I'll make sure to answer them. But other than that, please don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video where I will show you how to convert to the second normal form.